gives me great pleasure to introduce one of our newest Toastmasters, Geneva Tyree. She is bringing us a speech tonight for her class. Welcome, Geneva.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to start by asking you a question, or first, painting a picture for you. Imagine yourself cruising down the highway, listening to your favorite music. You've been on the road for about 2 to 3 hours, but you don't care because you got your destination in sight. That's right, in another 2 to 3 hours, you're going to be well on your way to your vacation spot. Or maybe you're visiting your family member that you haven't seen in a long time. But you look in the rearview mirror and what do you see? Those dreaded red and blue lights. What's the first thing that you do? Check your speed limit. Sure, the speed limit sign says go 65 miles per hour, but you were going 75 because you were in your comfort zone. And that's what you felt safe doing. So the cop pulls around, slaps you with the ticket, and you got to come back to that place that you're unfamiliar with to come to court to face that ticket. By a show of hands, how many people feel like they've been in a similar situation to this? Everyone. Great. So this brings me to my point, to why I think that the speed limits on highways should be raised. Speed limits on highways should be raised because speed limits were originally intended to go very high speeds on. Also, slower speed limits, unrealistic speed limits, cause unlawful behavior. And also, it can lower fatalities in highway accidents. So, my first point, speed limits on highways should be raised because highways were originally intended to go very high speeds on. According to, do you know what speed highways were originally called? They're originally called the Dwight D. Eisenhower National System of Interstate and Defense Highways. They used this long, lengthy term because they were originally for the military to have access and get from one place to another very fast in case of an emergency. According to an article by Beth Zane called "Do You Know Why Interstate Highways Were Built?" that you can find on www.thereasoner.com, she states that highways were originally intended for emergency and in case of martial law or an attack. This was used to move military units around. So as you can see, initially highways are intended to go very fast on. They were also used for the public in case of a nuclear attack for us to escape from one place to another. Another fact that it was intended to go very fast on. They weren't even opened up to the public until much later. Does anybody know where the magic number 55 came from? The magic number 55, a little bit of history. The National and Maximum Speed Law required the states to tell everybody and post the speed limits to be 55 miles per hour as a part of a provision of the 1974 Emergency Highway Energy Conservation Act. This act was to save gasoline. So, and they put in this act thinking that it would cause a decrease, 2.2% of gasoline consumption by Americans. However, a study done after said that it only decreased it by 1%. They said that the states to change their speed limit to that 55 miles per hour, or else if they didn't do it, they would lose federal funding for the highways. However, in 1995, they demolished that act and gave the rights back to the states. Now, that I explained to you how highways were originally intended to go very fast on, and also where they set the standards to go 55 miles per hour, I'm going to now explain to you why highways should be increased because it causes unrealistic speed and encourages unlawful behavior when you have unrealistic standards. So me personally, I'm an avid driver. I drive from Georgia to Maryland quite often because I have family in school. So when I'm on the highway going posted 60 to 75 miles per hour, I'm not going to lie, I normally speed because in my comfort zone is around 75 to 80, which is 10 over. So the way I see it is if I do go the speed limit that they post, a trip that normally takes me 7.5 hours will take me 10. And I think the longer that I'm on the road, personally, that gives me more chance of being in an accident. So, and I mostly drive at night, which gives me more motivation to speed because there's nobody really on the road. But however, when I do drive in the day and I make that trip from Georgia to Maryland, and I am going the posted 65 miles per hour, everybody around me is going 75. So I tend to go 75. I go with the flow of traffic because I feel like that's safer for me, personally. So what feels safer for you is the question. Personally, my natural instinct is to go faster, but because that feels safer to me. So I'm really stuck in between a rock and a hard place because it's abide by the law or do what I feel is safe. And personally, I go with my natural instinct every time. According to Arizona Department of Transportation and their website, asdot.com, they have an article on realistic speed limits and unrealistic speed limits and what they can do. Realistic speed limits have encouraged public compliance of behavior of the majority. They have effective enforcement tools that can be set in place for the police, and it also has less hostility towards the police. However, unrealistic speed limits can cause behavior of the majority to be unlawful. It can also cause people to dislike the police, and it also gives tourists a bad taste in their mouth for wherever they were caught speeding. So now that I explained to you my point on the highways and the speed limits, I'm now going to explain to you how the lower number of fatalities can be a result if the speed limits are increased from highway accidents. A wise man once told me, named Jebediah Newton, it's not speed that kills, it's the difference of speed that kills. I would like to examine this statement further. It's the difference of speed that kills. So if you're on the highway and you're going the amount of speed that you should, 65 miles per hour, and everybody else is going 75 miles per hour, really, you're putting yourself in a dangerous spot. So you can either go with the majority or go with the law. It's your choice. Traffic flows higher, more fluently when everybody's going the same speed. Increasing speed limits can ultimately save a life. Also, another statement that this wise man, Jebediah Newton, informed me about was that Montana doesn't have speed limits. I decided to examine this fact a little bit further. According to www.motorist.org, studies just completed by the National Motorist Association said that when Montana didn't have speed limits, it was the safest period ever in their history. However, when Montana implemented their new safety program, which required federal funding, artificially low speed limits, and enforceable speed laws, it doubled the fatalities. Yeah, that's right. The fatalities went up 111%. It went from an all-time low of 27 with no speed limits up to an all-time high of 56 when they enforced them. So this brings me to the question, no speed limits on 4-lane highways? Is that even really a question? Yeah. Well, according to the German Autobahn, who doesn't have speed limits, compared to the United States, their fatalities are way lower than the U.S. So, which brings me to another question. Do people change the way that they drive when there are speed limits? The answer to that is yes. Studies also show that when there are no speed limits, it encourages drivers to wear their seatbelts. It also encourages drivers to be more courteous on the road, which they do. So, in conclusion, I would like to state with you my 3 main points. 1, highways were originally intended to go high speeds on. 2, unrealistic speed limits encourages unlawful behavior. 3, higher speed limits can lower fatalities. So, if all you took from this, if you got anything out of what I said tonight, then I would consider my job here done if I simply just planted a seed in your head. However, if you are just as passionate as I am about this, I suggest that you contact your governor and ask him to help you campaign against raising the speed limits on the U.S. national highways. Just remember, hiring the speed limits can save a life. Thank you.